On this week's cover story, the 2021 U.S. Open Championship saw the expansion of the growing wheelchair divisions in pickleball. Wheelchair tennis has been very successful and popular for decades now, and with the growth of pickleball exploding, wheelchair competition was well represented in Naples, Florida, earlier in the week with a full-court wheelchair singles, skinny singles, and later in the week the popular mixed hybrid wheelchair division, with a standing player teaming up with a wheelchair partner. The major rule difference is the two-bounce rule for wheelchair players. I caught up with one of the top wheelchair gold medalists on the stadium court, Michael O'Leary, who has an amazing story as a standing top pickleball player and now a true inspiration with a desire to grow the wheelchair sport of pickleball. Inside World Pickleball, we're at the U.S. Open on the stadium court, and we're with Mike O'Leary. Now, Mike is in a wheelchair now, but he was not in a wheelchair all of his life. But he's playing wheelchair pickleball. He won the singles, full court. They're playing now with able-bodied. It's a mixed tournament. If you haven't seen wheelchair pickleball, we've covered wheelchair tennis for many, many years. So this is our first experience here watching people like yourselves play, Mike. So give us a little background on your story, because obviously you're a very competitive athlete and playing pickleball before you had an injury and a disease and got into the wheelchair. So just give our viewers a little background on your pickleball history.
About 6 years ago, I picked up a wiffle ball and a paddle, and I thought, this is the silliest thing I've ever done in my life, and it ended up being the biggest passion I've ever had in a sport. And my goal was to become a pro, which never happened because I came to a high 4 or 5 level, but as a standing player. But after I was getting close to the 5-0 level when I was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. And aside from some of the cognitive issues, one of the things that happened was there was a delay from my brain to my feet. So I started falling on the court, and within a matter of 3 months I could no longer I could barely walk. So I went through a spell of depression after this for about 6 months, and then somebody introduced me to a sports wheelchair and said, why don't you come play? And I was very hesitant and reluctant, but I went out there, and my wonderful wife was on the sidelines, and she saw that within about 10 minutes I was getting the hang of it, and I had a pretty big smile on my face. We went home, and I got fitted for my own chair, and I've never looked back. To this day, I enjoy pickleball more now than I ever did as a standing player.
Right. When you talk about the difference in the wheelchair, obviously you had to learn different mechanics and the movements of being able to play pickleball while in the wheelchair. And are the roles totally different, or are they mostly similar as far as playing?
Yeah, they're very similar. The big thing is we are allowed 2 bounces. We can have our front caster wheels on the bottom can cross the non-volley zone on a volley. If our big wheels cross, that's a fault. And other than that, it's basically the same game. And it's just a matter of learning the mobility skills. I was told by a player when I first started in the wheelchair, he said, I felt very awkward. And I said, this fellow said to me, give it 3 months and you'll be one with your chair. And he was right. I don't even think about it now. And I've done a series of mobility skills videos with actually Rob Elliott from Engage, and we're also now trying to raise money to donate wheelchairs to others that can't afford them, either can't afford them, or parks or rec areas that can't afford wheelchairs.
About how many people are out there playing competitive pickleball in wheelchairs? I know tennis became very big, so far, but pickleball is a growing sport itself. New people coming in. Maybe a lot of people don't even realize they can play pickleball in wheelchairs, but I know that's what you're trying to promote.
Yeah, there are a lot of tennis players in wheelchairs, and now we're getting more and more of those players that are converting over to pickleball. I think the transition to pickleball in a wheelchair is easier than the transition to tennis in a wheelchair. A lot more court to cover, and of course everything depends on your disability. Some have more disability than others, and my passion's pickleball. But we have, I think, at the Open this year we have 8 wheelchair players. We would have had about 13 or 14 if it weren't for COVID, and the Canadians would have been able to come down. They're good friends of mine. And I've been talking with some people in Texas. In San Antonio, there's a group, they have about 6 chairs, 6 wheelchair pickleball players. So we're trying to network out and get them to start coming to the tournaments. And I enjoy playing doubles wheelchair, and I enjoy playing singles wheelchair, but I actually mostly still play against all standing players. Yeah, I still really enjoy that, because nothing thrills me more than zinging one by a standing player. But I do want to also keep my focus on the wheelchair growth, the wheelchair events.
Right.